They said she was born on a night when the stars refused to shine. A woman taller than any man, her skin like night soil and her eyes like thunderclouds. They chained her wrists, 6 men strong. Yet she did not scream. She sang. A song made of breath and blood. By dawn, the barn was silent. The chains hung empty, slick with something darker than mud. And from that day on, nothing in St. Landry Parish grew right again. Louisiana, 1851. The sun over St. Landry Parish was thick and red, heavy like it was trying to sink into the earth. The land here was cursed. Cypress trees nodded like old bones, and plantations standing crooked in their own reflection of sin. They called the place Belchain, a name that meant nothing now, not after what was found in the cane fields. A girl, a slave, 7 feet tall. Her name, Dinah. They said she had been born from a mother who died screaming, and that her father was not a man at all, but a thing that moved through the sugar rows on moonless nights. Her body was massive, her shoulders like a wall of bark, her hands able to snap iron like twigs. The overseer, Colonel Rollins, saw her not as human, but as spectacle, a curiosity for guests who whispered of freaks and monsters. And yet, the slaves whispered something else. She's not theirs. She belongs to the earth. That was the year the animals began to vanish, and the air inside Belchain started to hum, like something alive beneath the ground. It began small, a cow found torn open, the body untouched by scavengers. Then, 2 boys disappeared near the cane rows. Their shoes were found days later, clean, sitting side by side. The colonel blamed the gators, but the slaves knew better. They said Dinah had been talking to the wind. At night, she would sit beneath the oak tree by the slave quarters, whispering in an old language none could name. Her eyes rolled back, her voice trembling like a prayer said too long. One woman swore she saw the branches bend toward her, as if the tree was listening. Soon, lights began to flicker in the swamp. Blue, flickering orbs like will-o'-the-wisps, drawing people in, never returning them. The white men mocked it, called it nigger ghost tales. But one night, even Colonel Rollins saw them, and for a second he crossed himself. Rollins decided to discipline Dinah. 6 men were called. Iron cuffs were brought. The sound of chains echoed like church bells. But the night before they were to bind her, something strange occurred. Every dog on the plantation howled in unison, facing the cane fields. The moon vanished behind a smear of cloud. The workers refused to leave their quarters. The men went anyway. Witnesses later said the barn doors closed themselves behind them. At sunrise, all 6 men were dead, their spines bent backward, their faces frozen in terror. The chains that were meant for Dinah were coiled around their necks, polished, almost ritualistic. Dinah was gone. Only her voice was heard that night, carried by the wind, humming a melody that made even the bravest man kneel. The sheriff arrived 2 days later. His name was Clay Boone, a man with a gun in one hand and the Bible in the other. He sealed off the barn, burned the bodies, and told the people it was an accident, a gas leak, or a slave rebellion. But whispers spread. The slaves began to pray at night for protection not from Rollins, but from her. Still, the colonel's pride couldn't let it end there. He ordered her captured alive. He offered gold to bounty hunters from Baton Rouge, men who believed no woman could defy them. They came with nets, dogs, and shotguns. They found nothing, only circles of black ash in the grass, and symbols carved deep into tree trunks, spirals, and eyes. By the next month, 3 of those hunters were missing, and one was found floating face down in the swamp, his chest burned from within. The locals began calling her La Femme Giante, the giant woman of the chains. But among the slaves, she was something holier, Mother Dinah, the root walker. They claimed she could command iron, that her voice could make chains tremble. Old women began leaving offerings at the edges of the field, bits of food, old keys, even teeth, believing she walked the land at dusk. The overseer mocked them. 3 nights later, his daughter stopped speaking. She just stared out the window, mouthing something none could hear, while the sound of clinking chains filled the house at night. The church sent Father Armand Duval, a French missionary stationed in New Orleans. He arrived with crucifixes and Latin scripture, convinced this was a case of demonic possession. He interviewed the slaves one by one. But when he met an old woman named Mercy, she whispered, "This ain't the devil, Father. This is older than him." The priest began recording everything: the strange marks, the iron chains that rattled when no one touched them, the black sludge found in the well. His notes, still preserved in fragments today, mention a recurring word: a banshee. He translated it as one who returns. Hidden inside Father Duval's journal was a page torn from an African grimoire, smuggled across the ocean centuries before. It spoke of a woman of height, born once every 7 generations, carrying the strength of all those who had died enslaved. A vessel for vengeance, an answer to centuries of chains. Dinah was that vessel. Duval tried to warn the colonel, but Rollins laughed in his face and said, "If she's a god, then I'll hang her like one." That night, lightning split the oak tree in half, and the plantation's sugar mill burned to the ground. The next morning, half the plantation was coughing blood. The air stank of rust and decay. The animals refused to eat. The sugar cane turned black at the root. Duval wrote that it was as if the earth itself was rejecting the weight of sin. Every night, he heard the chains again, not metal now, but breathing like lungs pulling air. He stopped praying. He started listening. Duval discovered letters, correspondences between Rollins and a secret group of planters called the Brotherhood of the Thorn. They believed in harnessing divine servitude, that through pain and sacrifice, a perfect laboring body could be created. Dinah had been chosen for this experiment. She was never meant to live. She was meant to become something else. Beneath the barn lay a chamber, lined with salt, bone, and old chains forged in Africa. Duval found it after hearing cries beneath the floorboards. There were carvings, depictions of a towering woman, eyes white, standing over kneeling men. And there, on the altar, was her name, carved deep into iron. Dinah. The letters were bleeding. The night the Brotherhood gathered to destroy her spirit, the ground shook. The iron around the altar began to melt. Father Duval saw her rise from the earth, her skin cracked with heat, her eyes pure white light. Chains dragged behind her like veins. The men fired guns, prayed, screamed. None survived. Duval described hearing every tree cry out. The swamp boiled. The air itself became heavy, and from Dinah's mouth came a voice not of one woman, but of thousands. Every lash, every scream, every name forgotten beneath plantation soil, they spoke through her. She was not vengeance. She was memory. The priest fled to the church in Opelousas, locked himself inside, and begged for forgiveness. He said he could still hear the chains clinking outside the door. He slit his own throat before sunrise. Months later, federal marshals came. The plantation was gone, burned to salt and smoke. They called it the Bell Chain Incident. Every file was sealed. Every witness disappeared. But one photograph survived. A barn half submerged in mud, and a single chain hanging from a beam, twisting upward as if reaching for heaven. In 1871, Northern investors rebuilt the property. Within weeks, workers reported strange noises, footsteps in the cane rows, whispers in Creole. One man said he saw her shadow in the field, a woman 7 feet tall, dragging iron behind her. They found him dead the next day, his neck bound in rusted chains. Every 50 years, the locals say, she returns when the sugar cane bleeds red. Farmers wake to find their tools bent, their livestock gone, and the echo of metal on dirt. They say if you whisper her name in the swamp, the water trembles. Dinah. Even today, Louisiana children sing a rhyme they don't understand. Tall Miss Dinah, don't look down. Chains go rattling through the town. Blood on sugar, sweet turned sour. Pray she sleeps another hour. Teachers call it folklore. Historians call it hysteria. But every October, the air around Bell Chain still hums. In 1938, a group of archaeologists unearthed the old foundation of the plantation. They found no human remains, only chains fused into the ground like roots. One man pocketed a piece of it. That night, he shot himself. On the wall behind him, written in his own blood, was one word. Remember.